today's proceedings by welcoming you all to Econ 2021. I humbly invite the General Chair of Econ and President of the Electrical Engineering Society of the University of Moratuwa, Senior Lecturer at the Department of Electrical Engineering, Dr. Tushara Ratnayakar. Dear Madam, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the ones who are joining from outside. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Econ 2021, the third International Electrical Engineering Conference organized by the Electrical Engineering Society of Electrical Engineering Department, University of Moratuwa. This year, we had to organize this as a virtual event due to the pandemic situation. So I warmly welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Dinesh Ranganagurusinghe of RTDS Technologies, Canada, and the Honorary Chair, Professor J.R. Lucas, Head of the Department of Electrical Engineering, Professor Udayanga Hemapala, Head of the Energy Division of ADB, Dr. Priyantha Wijetunga, all the session chairs, including Dr. Ranjit Riyanapathirana, Dr. Asanka Rodrigo, Professor Andra Vijaypala, Professor Karunadasa, and all paper presenters and all the participants present here in the virtual platform on behalf of the organizing committee of the EECon 2021 conference. So we are very grateful to our technical co-sponsors, IEEE, IEEE Sri Lanka section, IEEE Power and Energy Society Sri Lanka chapter, IEEE Robotics and Automation Society Sri Lanka chapter, IEEE Power Electronics Society Sri Lanka chapter, and Electrical Engineering Society of the Department of Electrical Engineering. And I am very grateful to the organizing committee for their tremendous support to make this prestigious research conference in electrical engineering to a reality on today. Today, there would be 4 technical sessions covering a wide range of electrical engineering subjects. In addition to that, our conference will be delighted by 2 keynote speeches. First one at morning after this inauguration session by Dr. Dinesh Gurusinghe of RTDS Technologies, Canada, on digital real-time simulations for power and energy systems. And second keynote would be at afternoon at 2 p.m. by an IEEE distinguished lecturer, Professor Kaisan of Tsinghua University, China, on power conversion technology for renewable energy systems integrated into medium voltage DC grids. After that, from 3:15 p.m., there will be a workshop on soft robotics for biomedical applications with the collaboration of the Center for Advanced Robotics of University of Moratuwa. And resource persons will be Professor Trishantha Nanayakkara and Dr. Thilina Lalitharatna from Imperial College, London. So I again welcome you all to the EECon 2021 conference on behalf of the organizing committee. And I sincerely hope that you will greatly benefit from the array of technical papers, keynote addresses, and workshop organized for you today. We invite you all to stay with us for the whole day, and we wish that you enjoy a fruitful program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam, for welcoming all to EECon 2021. Next, to address the gathering, I would like to cordially invite the Head of the Department of Electrical Engineering, University of Moratuwa, Professor Udayanga Hemapala. Dear sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, all of you, and good afternoon, the attendees from other countries, and the authors and participants from the industry and my dear colleagues. The Department of Electrical Engineering, the University of Moratuwa, with the support of Electrical Engineering Society, launched the first conference in 2015 as a local conference, and with the expectation of becoming the premier the conference in electrical engineering in Sri Lanka. Then in 2016, it is converted to an international conference. And then we had the second international conference in 2018. And then after that, in 2020, we couldn't have it, but we are having the third time, and with the technical sponsorship of IEEE Sri Lanka section, and with the support of the IEEE chapters, basically local chapters, IEEE Society, Information Society, and Power Electronics Society. And ECON has been providing a platform for researchers, the local researchers, as well as the researchers from other countries, the international researchers, and as well as the researchers from the industry, to publish their discoveries in all fields of electrical engineering. And this year, our technical program is rich and included with speech and one workshop, and basically around 26 papers across 2 sessions and being around 4 tracks. And I extend my gratitude to Professor Kais and Dr. Dinesh Gurusinghe for accepting our invitation to deliver the keynote addresses for the ECON 2021. And I sincerely hope that you will greatly benefit from these keynote addresses and the workshop and the technical presentation organized. Particularly, I would like to thank the general chairs, program chair, publication chair, and other co-chairs, and the organizing committee for their great effort organizing the technical program. And also, I'd like to thank all the reviewers for their thorough and timely reviewing the papers. And finally, I would like to conclude my remarks with requesting all of you to stay with us during the day. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful. Before we get any further, let's have a group photograph. So please turn on your camera. And the virtual background will be available on the Zoom chat. Again, I would like to request whomever possible to turn on the camera, please turn on the camera, and let's pause for the camera. Okay, then let's take the photo. I think it's okay. Thank you for turning on your camera. Let's continue.
Thank you all. Now we are at the first milestone of ECON 2021, the first keynote of the day. To chair the proceedings, I invite the program chair of EECON, senior lecturer at the Department of Electrical Engineering, University of Moratuwa, Dr. W.D. Prasad, and general chair of EECON, Dr. Tushara Ratnaik. The floor is yours, sir and madam.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Let me to introduce the keynote speaker. Dinesh Gurusinghe received the BSc Engineering degree from the University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka in 2003, the M.Eng degree from the Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand in 2010, and the PhD degree from the University of Manitoba, Canada in 2017, all in electrical engineering. In addition, he holds the BIT degree from the University of Colombo, School of Computing, and the MTech degree from the Open University of Sri Lanka. He worked as an electrical engineer at Cruikshank Ceylon and Ceylon Electricity Board, Sri Lanka, from 2003 to 2008. Since 2015, he has been with RTDS Technologies Canada, where he is currently a simulation engineer. He is a chartered engineer in the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, a registered engineering practitioner in the Engineering Council of Sri Lanka, a registered professional engineer in the province of Manitoba, Canada, and a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, USA. Dr. Gurusinghe has co-authored over 25 journal publications, conference papers, and technical reports. His research interests include digital real-time simulation, protection and automation, power system stability and control, and power system optimization. Dr. Dinesh is joining with us today from the city of Winnipeg in Canada. It's good night, Dinesh. I think it's around now 10 p.m. in Thursday night. So thank you for accepting our invitation to deliver the keynote. And it's over to you, Dinesh, to deliver the keynote on digital real-time simulations in power systems. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dinesh Rangana Gurusinghe from RTDS Technologies Canada. Today I am going to talk about digital real-time simulation for power and energy systems. I will start off with an introduction on my company, RTDS Technologies, giving you an idea of what it is, what we do, and some history of the company. Then I will explain the background and theory of how the state-of-art digital real-time simulators work. Next, I will discuss various applications of modern digital real-time simulators ranging from general to advanced applications. A few selected applications include protection relay testing including IC 61850 communication, microgrids and distributed energy resources studies, simulation and testing of phase measurement units as a part of wide area measurement, protection and control, and power hardware in the loop or PHIL studies. Finally, I will open the floor for questions. Let's first talk about the history of RTDS and how it became the globally recognized company it is today. The RTDS simulator was originally developed in the 1980s as a part of research project at the Manitoba HEDC Research Center, which is the same company produces PSCAT. In 1989, the RTDS simulator performed the world's first fully digital real-time simulator. In 1993, the first commercial installation of the RTDS simulator took place. At that time, analog simulators were very big and expensive, so there was a push to really develop digital simulators. Funding and sponsoring provided by Manitoba Hydro and Manitoba HEDC Research Center to commercialize the product. It was in 1994 that RTDS Technologies was founded with the mission of carrying on the development and commercialization of the RTDS simulator. Today, the RTDS is the world's benchmark for performing real-time power system simulation. Today, the RTDS simulator is the world standard for performing digital real-time power system and power electronic simulations. Our company is committed to innovation. We are continuously developing our hardware, software, and support services in response to the needs of our customers. We are located in Winnipeg, Canada, inside the University of Manitoba grounds. Our state-of-the-art facilities stand over a man-made lake as seen in this picture. Currently, we have over 75 employees who work together under one roof. Today, RTDS Technologies provides its renowned service to customers in over 50 countries with over 500 customers, 2,000 plus units in total. Over 80% of our clients are repeat customers, meaning they have bought our products from us more than once. We are proud to serve the world's major electrical utilities, power system equipment manufacturers, cutting-edge research institutions and universities, and consultants. Next, I'm going to talk about background and theory behind the digital real-time simulation. There are a few different types of simulation that can be chosen based on the application of the simulation study. These include load flow, or more precisely power flow, transient stability analysis, and electromagnetic transient. Load flow simulations are used for determining the steady-state solution of a power system. For load flow, the simulation is completed at once in single time-step solution where the computation time depends on the complexity of the system. The output is the magnitude and angle of each of the specified buses. From these quantities, active and reactive power across the transmission lines between buses can be determined. Here, the nominal system frequency, that is either 50 Hz or 60 Hz, is used. Transient stability analysis, or TSA, is used for studying the stability of synchronous machines after a system disturbance. The typical time step for a TSA study is 8 milliseconds. Similar to load flow studies, TSA outputs magnitude and angle. Typically operation with nominal and off-nominal frequencies. Electromagnetic transient or EMT simulations are ideal for high-frequency applications. Detailed modeling of power systems can be made with EMT studies due to small time step. EMT simulations operate under small time steps around 2 to 50 microseconds. Typically, for power system applications, 50 microseconds is adequate. For power electronics, small time step like 2 microseconds is reasonable. The output signals are instantaneous values and allows for time responses to be observed. Frequency range up to 3 kHz is used for power system applications. For power electronic applications, a small time step is used operating in frequencies up to 15 kHz. Both TSA and EMT simulations, power flow is performed to determine the initial conditions. Digital real-time simulators are designed to perform real-time EMT-type simulations based on the Domel's algorithm. They provide the most detail, and it is the simulation type used by other popular simulation programs like PSCAD. The simulation output is discrete, not continuous. At the end of each time step, new output values are updated. Of course, if this time step is very small, you can imagine how the discrete the low-level controls of inverter-based systems and ability to capture subcycle phenomena associated with transients. We have seen increasing evidence that, particularly in systems with a higher penetration of converter-based generations or load, phasor simulations provide results that are too optimistic. Therefore, EMT simulation will be increasingly necessary as it does provide more realistic results and it's more likely to reliably predict things like control instability. Let's talk about how the EMT simulation algorithm is performed. We can apply Kirchhoff's current and voltage laws to this circuit. But this would lead to differential equations which could be difficult to solve. Therefore, a more systematic approach is required. The EMT simulation uses the Domel's algorithm, which converts differential equations into linear algebraic equations using the trapezoidal rule of integration. To display the Domel algorithm performed by the EMT simulations, let's take the example of an inductor. Here, the basic equations describing the voltage and current relationship in the inductor. These equations can be rearranged into an integral form. Applying the trapezoidal rule of integration, equation can be derived which describe the current across the component. The important thing is to note is that the current consists of two terms, a present term and a history term. All power system components in the EMT simulation are represented with the Norton equivalent circuit. The current entering the component is described as IL, which is the value using the trapezoidal rule of integration. As mentioned, the current consists of two components. The history term, denoted as IH, is allocated to the current source, and the present term is used to describe the current through the resistor. In the example of inductor, we can see that the conductance values for the inductor GL is set to delta T over 2L. Similar to the inductor example, this algorithm is applied to all power system elements such as generators, transformers, transmission lines, and so on, within a given network to be represented by an equivalent current source and conductance. More complex components may require substantial computation for the history terms. Now that we understand how power system elements are modeled, let's look into how a power system solution is performed for determining all node voltages and currents. First, convert a given power system to equivalent network of only current sources and resistors or conductors. This is performed using the Domel's algorithms as I just described. Now that all the components are modeled as a resistor with a shunt current source, a conductance matrix can be determined for the system. The value of the current sources are determined using the trapezoidal rule as mentioned earlier. The current source consists of the history component IH, which uses data from previous time steps. Now that the conductance matrix and the current matrices are known, we can compute the voltages at each node. With the node voltages determined, the current through the resistive branches can be determined. After this step, we have the voltages and currents at each node. Now, repeat for each and every time step. Here, steps 1 to 4 are called the network solution. This example is just a simple case with a 3-node matrix. Therefore, larger the system, larger the matrix, meaning a longer time required to convert the matrix in the specified time step, typically of 50 microseconds. Now we have a basic understanding of how digital real-time simulators work to perform their simulations. Digital real-time simulators generally use parallel processing on 2 levels. Inside each digital real-time simulator, there is a processor with multiple cores. Each core is dedicated to a different task in parallel to carry out the simulation. As you can see, different power system elements are assigned to multiple cores of the processor. They perform necessary calculations in parallel and exchange among them. As the network size increases and we might exceed the processing resources for one unit, we can split the power system network into multiple connected subsystems as seen in this picture. So, we have parallel processing within each unit and between units for larger systems. Now, what is real-time simulation? Why do we need real-time simulation? In non-real-time or PC-based offline simulations, the amount of time required to compute all equations and functions representing a system during a given time step may be shorter or larger than the duration of the simulation time step, depending on case sensitivity. In A, you can observe that the computation time is shorter than time step. This is referred to as accelerated simulation. In B, the duration is longer than the real event time. As seen in C, a real-time simulation is one where the simulation time of an event is equal to the real time it takes for that event to occur. In fact, the time required to compute the solution at a given time step must be shorter than the whole clock duration of the time step. This allows us the real-time to perform all operations necessary to make a real-time simulation relevant, including driving inputs and outputs from external devices. For example, an event that takes 3 cycles or 60 milliseconds in real life would take 60 milliseconds in digital real-time simulator. Whereas other simulation programs that do not run in real time might take longer, maybe 100 milliseconds or shorter. In this way, we can truly model and predict the response of real systems without actually having run to test on the real system itself. To achieve real-time simulation, digital real-time simulators use parallel processing as we just discussed. In fact, digital real-time simulator can be thought of as a very large and powerful parallel processing computer. The simulation time steps are very small and all values are updated with each time step. This means that all the necessary calculations and servicing of all input and output devices must occur within the period of a time step for real-time simulation to be achieved. This means at the beginning of the next time step, all the values are updated. Digital real-time simulators will not allow the simulation to continue if computation time exceeds the time step. This is commonly known as time step overflow or an overrun. So, I hope that's clear what I mean when I say real time. How digital real-time simulator works. The simulator exchanges data with inputs and output cards and other simulators in real time. Connecting with other simulators allows each simulator to size if simulation needs increase. The I/O cards provide analog or digital inputs and outputs that are essential for interfacing the digital real-time simulator with external equipment. Digital real-time simulators also allows the user to communicate with external devices or various Ethernet protocols, synchronize the simulation time step to an external time reference like a GPS clock. The user conducts and interacts with the simulations on a PC workstation running the interfacing software. Typically, simulator manufacturers provide their own interfacing software. Here, the PC communicates with the simulator over a local area network, and this is a non-real-time functionality. This allows the user's PC and the simulator for sending and receiving messages associated with product updates and other user-initiated events. As I mentioned before, the I/O cards provides analog or digital inputs and outputs that are essential for interfacing the digital real-time simulator with external equipment. Let's say we want to connect some hardware to communicate and interact with the digital real-time simulator. An example of such a scenario is testing of protection relay in an hardware-in-the-loop configuration. This is made possible in the simulator through its I/O features. Typical features of analog I/O cards include 12 to 16 isolated channels, 16-bit resolution, and plus or minus 10 volt inputs and output. For example, you may use an analog output card to send power system voltage and current to a protection relay. An amplifier can be used with an analog output card to control high voltage and current waveform. Typically, digital I/O cards include 64 isolated channels, plus 5 or plus 24 volt inputs and outputs. Special card may operate with up to 250 volt DC output, especially for protection relay testing. Usually, I/O cards are modular and multiple cards can be simultaneously connected to the simulator to obtain hundreds of signals if required. Modernization applications require the digital real-time simulator to communicate with external devices or various industry standard Ethernet protocols. Network interface cards take simulation data, assemble into a standard compliant packets, and then send those out via Ethernet. It can also unpack the inputs coming from external devices. Here, I have listed most commonly used Ethernet protocols in real time. IC 61850 goose and sample value, PMU data streaming, SCADA protocols such as IC 104, IEEE DNP3 and Modbus. Some simulators support generic TCP UDP protocols that specifically help for research work and prototype testing. Digital real-time simulators can have multiple network protocols operating simultaneously. It is important to synchronize digital real-time simulators to external time reference such as a GPS clock. Digital real-time simulators use a high accuracy clock or oscillator to synchronize event to real time. The synchronization ensures that the simulation time step clock remains locked to the GPS signal. It may use industry standard timing protocols such as 1 pulse per second, IEEE 1588 Precision Time Protocol or PTP, and IRIG-B. The interfacing software provides a facility for user to build the simulation case and to run and interact with the simulation. It should comprise an inbuilt library with various component models that should be user configurable. Once the case has been created, The user compiles their case, which creates the executable code to be run on the simulator hardware. The runtime graphical user interface is used to start, stop, and interact with the simulation. Once the simulation is running, the user can view numerous meters and plot as well as change various parameters using switches and control room activities. In addition, the user can initiate faults and other events. Some interfacing software also includes automation facilities where the user can create a script file to execute many different simulation cases with minimal or no user interaction. The principal advantage of running in real time is the ability to connect external hardware in a closed loop with the simulated environment. So, this means not only observing the response of the device to an imposed signal, but also interfacing the device's response back into the simulated network. This is what we call hardware in the loop simulation. It's only possible if we are updating the inputs and output of the simulation continuously in real time. It's not possible with a non-real-time modeling tool or with open loop testing tool like a relay test set. Open loop tools lack the flexibility to test multiple devices at once, for example, or to allow for detailed modeling of the network, for example, the inclusion of power system dynamics and control. With closed loop testing, the power system recovery from the fault can be analyzed. Closed loop tests in general can provide more accurate control system. Another advantage of real-time simulation is its efficiency when we are running longer simulations that might include slow acting dynamics or higher volumes of simulations. The simulation time could be very large using an offline tool. So using a real-time simulator can be tens or even hundreds of times faster for larger or more complex networks. The digital real-time simulators change the way of protection and control system testing is performed for the entire power systems industry and continue to refine the cutting edge of power system simulation. Digital real-time simulators have been developed to suit a wide variety of power system and power electronic applications. Digital real-time simulators are up to speed with grid modernization applications such as protection and control testing, distribution, smart grid, and power electronics. Today, I'm going to discuss a few selected applications in detail. Protection relay testing including digital substations, microgrid testing, renewables and distributed energy resources, inverter testing, wiring protection and control studies, and performance testing of phasor measurement units. First, I would like to introduce protection relay testing with digital real-time simulator. There are three types of protective relay test methods. First is synthesis testing, where synthesized signals are used to test relay functions. For example, a signal generator will generate waveforms that models, let's say, a lightning shock. These theoretical model and waveforms may not represent actual values. As a result, it can misinterpret how a relay will function in service. The second approach is playback testing, where recorded or simulated waveforms are sent to the relay. This is open loop testing approach and most widely used form for relay testing. The third one is closed loop relay testing. Here, real-time simulator provide realistic power system signals, complete interaction between the relay and the simulated power system, and we can connect multiple devices simultaneously. Here, results are more accurate and represent a comprehensive simulation of how the relay and power system will respond. Next, I will discuss how the digital real-time simulator can be used to perform basic hardware-in-the-loop testing with distance protection relays. A digital real-time simulator can interface with electrical systems in a hardware-in-the-loop configuration as shown in this figure. Everything inside the grey box is what is simulated inside the simulator. The interface is achieved using simulator's input-output capabilities. As you can see, the power system includes a transmission line containing a fault branch. Two circuit breakers isolate the line. Here, the digital real-time simulator sends voltage and currents as well as circuit breaker status from the simulation to a protection relay outside of the simulation. The breaker trip and reclose signals from the physical relay back into the simulation to close the loop. Here, digital signals are sent through a digital to analog converter or an analog output card of the simulator. The output voltages and currents must first be amplified to represent realistic values of a power system. These signals are then fed into protection relay under test. This tricks physical protection relay to think it's in a real power system. By simulating a fault in the simulation, physical relay will be tripped. Here, the output contacts from the physical relays are used as input signal to control the simulator's circuit breakers. Relay trip commands are sent to the simulator using the digital input card. The digital output card is used to communicate circuit breaker statuses to the physical relays. In this way, we can create a closed loop between the digital real-time simulator and protection relays. Protection testing with digital real-time simulators can also be conducted using an IEC 61850 interface. This is the latest approach in relay testing. The relay can therefore communicate without direct connection to the simulator. Here, the simulator's network interface card allows the simulator to communicate with the physical relay using local area network-based protocols. As an alternative to using analog output, the current and voltage signals from this simulation case could be sent to the relay using IC 61850 9-2 sampled values. Breaker commands and status could be communicated via IC 61850 8-1 goose messaging. The next application is microgrids and distributed energy resources. In a microgrid environment with DERs and often multiple tiers of controls, it is extremely valuable to be able to test interoperability and to predict interaction between different systems, and doing so with real physical devices. In traditional distribution systems, power flow is unidirectional from generation station to load centers. Integration of DERs introduced bidirectional power flow, which must be studied in order to determine its effects on the grid. Digital real-time simulators supports multi-rate simulations. It does have environments for representing portions of the network that either as a fraction or a multiple of the time step of the main network. The future is seeing a lot more alternative energy resources, including wind, solar, fuel cells, battery bank, and power electronic converters. Therefore, digital real-time simulators include renewable energy modeling libraries. In hardware-in-the-loop simulations, hardware devices are interfaced to a digital real-time simulator, which models the rest of the system used to test the device operation. Hardware-in-the-loop simulations offer a cost-effective and safe method to test physical devices under real-time operating conditions. Various scenarios can be tested in a controlled environment to evaluate the performance of the device under test before it is connected to an actual system. Digital real-time simulators also have options for simulating power electronics via average value models instead of full switch simulation models. So, average models are essentially control voltage and current sources which sit in the main simulation time step. They are able to accurately represent the real and reactive power profile of the inverter both in steady state and transient conditions, but they don't represent the high frequency switching dynamics. Next, I'm moving on to an interesting use case. UC San Diego has a campus microgrid including a megawatt scale fuel cells, large scale solar array, gas turbine, cogeneration, battery storage, gas and steam plants, and emergency diesel generators. Their on-campus generation accounts for about 85% of their annual load. During the 2011 blackout in the southwest United States, this microgrid disconnected from the main grid, but it didn't shed load quickly enough. So their cogenerators shut down to those critical loads. They have modified the microgrid. On the left, you can see a diagram of the microgrid topology. You can see there are 3 utility ties, and this campus had the ability to split into multiple power islands, and the microgrid control system has been designed to track all of these islands and make logical decisions based on the topology. This monitoring and controlling system has over hundreds of devices consisting of controllers, protection relays, meters, and visualization tool. On the right, you can see the communication network diagram with both slow and fast moving protection and control data. Here, communication protocols include DNP3, IC61850 Goose, and synchrophases in addition to analog and digital outputs. The left side picture shows performance testing of this system with a digital real-time simulator prior to deliver, which was done by Soiser Engineering Lab. The right side figure shows the control system fulfilling its operational requirements, where a decoupling due to a frequency disturbance on the utility side shedding about 5 megawatts of load after the decouple. Next, I'm going to talk about wide area monitoring, protection and control studies with digital real-time simulators. Wide area monitoring, protection and control have many advantages with regard to system security and reliability. Wide area measurement based on phasor measurement units that can provide information to a global or master control scheme. When validating wide area synchrophasor applications, it is important to recognize development issues, technical hinges in real implementation, and issues related to communication. It is practically difficult to implement of a novel application under a system. More feasible solution is to use digital real-time simulators. The biggest advantage of this approach is actual hardware and communication equipment can be interfaced with the power system simulated in a real-time digital simulator. Of course, the operation of individual components as well as integrated system can be tested methodologically with this particular approach. The next application is phasor measurement unit electrical performance testing. Phasor measurement units or PMUs basically convert time domain voltage and current signal into timestamp phasor quantities. These estimated phasors used to estimate frequency and rate of change of frequency. Estimated phasors, frequency and rate of change of frequency then transmitted over a communication network to phasor data concentrators or PDCs. There are two methods of PMU interfacing. The first one is analog interface. It uses output from conventional voltage and current transformers. PMUs with analog interfaces need to convert the analog input signals into digital signals. Electronic instrumental transformers or EIT or a standalone merging unit. PMUs with digital interfaces subscribe IC 61850 sampled values. The current syncophasor standard IEC IEEE 6255-118-1 2018 defines steady state and dynamic tests for evaluating electrical performance of PMUs. Standard also specified error limits for phasors, frequency and rate of change of frequency measurements. Informative Annex E of the standard discusses the use of sample value input for PMUs and proposes requirements for performance evaluation of PMUs with sample value input. The standard neither provides test plans nor procedures. Therefore, IEEE Test Suite Specification or TSS provides test plan to evaluate electrical performances of PMUs. This is widely adopted in the electrical power industry. Let's move on to PMU test systems. First, consider an abstract test system. Here, a non-input voltage and current signals are fed to the PMU under test with the help of a signal generator synchronized to the common time reference. Then, the PMU's response or measurement is compared against the theoretical inputs. This system can only be realized in a virtual environment such as a time domain simulation tool where the input test signals and the PMU under test both are implemented in a single entity. A digital real-time simulator is an example of such a simulation tool. Next, consider more practical test system. This system has three functional units: test system, PMU under test, and time reference. Test system and PMUs are synchronized to the time reference. Here, the analysis tool calculates and delivers the theoretical test parameters to the signal generator, which generates time domain waveforms accordingly. Depending on the nature of the input signal generator and the PMU's input interface ratings, some signal processing and amplification might be required. Finally, the analysis tool collects PMU measurements from the PMU and compares them against the theoretical values to determine error quantities. Finally, consider PMU test system with a digital interface. This is very similar to the previous, but the amplifier is replaced with the sample value source and the PMU subscribes sample values. Usually, IC 61850-2 LE at 80 samples per cycle sampling rate is used as it is most common for commercial relays. Next, consider PMU test setups with digital real-time simulator. This shows the test setup with analog interface. First, high-resolution voltage and current test signals produced by the simulator converts to low-energy analog voltage signals by the analog output card of the simulator. These signals are then sent out to the amplifier, which produces secondary voltage and current signals, which are fed to the PMU under test. Both the simulator and the PMU under test are synchronized to a GPS clock, or more precisely, Global Navigation Satellite System. Digital real-time simulator has a specially designed software tools such as PMU Test Utility. These tools are capable of performing Digital real-time simulator published test signals as IC 618509-2 sample values using its network interface card. Here, the PMU under test, the simulator, and the workstation computer are the same area network. Total vector error and frequency error variations in the frequency range test for 5 PMUs. These plots are generated by using external plotting tool using data contained in the numerical test report produced by the PMU test utility of a digital real-time simulator. 4 out of 5 PMUs tested are commercial PMUs, that is vendors A to D, and the fifth one is the reference PMU model in the digital real-time simulator. Here, PMUs of vendors A and C support a digital interface, whereas vendors B and D have an analog interface. Let's move back to our last application, power hardware in the loop with a photovoltaic microinverter and the digital real-time simulator. Hardware in the loop simulations can be divided into two types, control hardware in the loop and power hardware in the loop. So far, I have discussed control hardware in the loop applications where the entire power system is modeled in the digital real-time simulator and no power is exchanged over the interface. The interface between the simulator and the control device using low-level voltage and current signals. Power hardware in the loop simulations involve interfacing the digital real-time simulator with the power device such as renewable energy hardware, motors, batteries, or load. Unlike control hardware in the loop, the digital real-time simulator and the external device exchange power over the power hardware in the loop interface. For closed-loop power hardware in the loop simulations, the amplifier must be able to operate in all 4 quadrants of the power plane, as it must be able to sink and source active and reactive power. This photo shows power hardware in the loop test setup with the simulator, 4-quadrant amplifier and 215-watt PV inverter. Excluding the microinverter, which is the device under test, the rest of the power system is simulated in the digital real-time simulator. The digital real-time simulator outputs the voltage which is to be applied to the terminals of the PV microinverter. The simulator is connected to the D2A converter which scales down the signal to electronic levels within plus or minus 10 volt peak. These voltage levels are well below the operating voltage range of the microinverter. Therefore, amplifier is required in the power hardware in the loop simulation to amplify the voltage to reasonable levels. The D2A microinverter converts the DC power generated by the PV panel to an AC power injected back to the grid. A current sensor located in the amplifier measures the inverter current which is sent through an A to D converter and then sent back to the simulated grid in the digital real-time simulator. Power hardware in the loop simulations are critical for power system device testing. Careful consideration of the interface non-linearities between the digital real-time simulator and the device under test will increase the accuracy and stability of the power hardware in the loop simulations. That's all I have for the day. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I would like to answer them now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dinesh, for the excited presentation. So I apologize all of you for the disturbances happened during presentation due to some technical issues. So now the floor is open for questions. You can direct your questions through the chat, or you can directly ask by switching on your mic. So there are already few questions through the chat. So can I direct it to you, Dr. Dinesh?
I can see the question.
Okay, you can see the chat.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank Conference Chair Dr. Tushara Damayanti and the Program Chair Dr. Prasad Vaduage and Econ 2021 Conference Committee to provide this opportunity for me to present how real-time simulator work and digital real-time simulator-based applications. The first question from Professor Lucas. He asked about the size of the simulator. I will repeat the question. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, so basically,
yeah.
20 years ago, I know the simulators were about the size of a cabinet, 2 meters tall, and you needed a lot of simulators even to do a significant problem. Is it still so? What sort of cost would be involved? Because you did not show any physical pictures. I think in the background I saw one.
Yeah, I
pictures of the simulator, and can you say how many units would be required, and typically the cost? And perhaps you can even answer Lindula's question together with that.
Yeah, the first question, the size of new simulator is right now it is size of the desktop computer. So
okay.
if we, yeah, I can show the picture. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, this is an application I just described, which is how we can test a solar system.
Okay.
Solar inverter with the digital simulator. So in here you can see that black box, which is the digital real-time simulator right now. You can compare the size with laptop computer. So this particular simulator includes 10 cores. And right now, instead of processing card, we provide core license. So if you want to simulate significantly large system, you can even go with single core, because with single core, you can go up to 30 three-phase node. And of course, you can execute other components like power system components and control components, which would be pretty much enough to simulate protection relay application. You can, of course, test using one core. You may simulate even medium-sized substation. You can simulate.
Okay. So unlike a long time ago, you don't need a large number of simulators. You could do probably with one for a start, and it could be meaningful. And
yes,
if you,
can start.
If you wanted to test, for example, a home-built, not home-built, custom-built relays, would one of these be sufficient to simulate, let's say, part of a distribution system and physically connecting the relay to that?
Yes.
And what sort of cost would be involved?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not in position to share the cost right now, but I know that
cost. Roughly, is it something like the cost of a car? Because those days, those RTDS was very expensive. Are they the same sort of cost as a high-end computer?
It's a little bit expensive, of course. The cost prices, I believe we already provide quotation to University of Moratuwa. I believe probably Dr. Vaduage, he already have a quotation. The reason is I cannot provide exact figure due to some reasons. One reason is cost depend on the hardware. So if you buy
I'm not asking for exact cost. I was asking whether it's something like the cost of a high-end computer, or is it 10 times that cost? That's all.
It's not exactly 10 times, but it could be like 2-3 times compared to the supercomputer.
That's all I want to know, which means it is affordable unlike long time ago. Right, thank you very much.
Right now cost is pretty much low compared with a couple of, even several years ago.
Right, thank you very much.
The second question is from Dr. Lidula. Is it possible to test any user-built protective relays? Of course, you can test user-built protective relays. As I mentioned during my presentation, simulators support different types of interfaces. You may use either analog interfaces to connect to a protective relay using conventional approach. You may provide low-level voltages, like if your relay voltage level is within plus or minus 10 volt peak to peak value, then you can directly feed those signal to DSP board of your protective relay. Or if you want to provide instrumental level voltages and current, then you can use amplifier. Using an amplifier, you can amplify voltages and current into instrumental levels, which means like 110 volt or 5 ampere volt and current level, and then you can feed to your protective relay. If you want to do this type of testing, you don't need any specific things. Of course, you need simulator, plus you need analog output card to provide voltage and current signal, and you need digital input card to get trip signal back to the simulator so that you can control your circuit breaker. And then if you want to provide circuit breaker status back to the relay, again, you might need another digital output card. And if your protective relay model support IC61850 approach, then you don't need analog or digital output card. Instead, you can use a network interface card, which industry standard protocol. For relay testing, basically we are using IC61850 sample values and goose. And the next question is from Dr. Karunadasa. Can RTDS provide internal switching responses of power electronics converters in addition to input and output responses? Yes, we can provide internal switching responses using digital output and input. We have a bunch of power electronic converter models, and during my application, I didn't much discuss about power electronic application. One reason is I'm not expert in that area. My expert area in power system protection and automation. But of course, there are hundreds of different power electronics applications people use throughout the world. Basically, you can provide different type of firing pulses out from the simulator, and then you can control external power electronic devices. Or alternatively, you can simulate your power electronic devices inside the simulator, and then you can use real controllers. Those real controllers provide power pulses back to the simulator and then control simulator circuit. So depending on your requirement, you can either simulate power electronics controllers or power electronic devices inside the simulator. And certain utilities, they are using replica controls, especially for their HVDC controls with the RTDS simulator, because they have real controller and then they have replica model in RTDS, so that they can, sometimes they can control even real HVDC controller unit using control model simulated inside the simulator. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
There is another question from Dr. Prasad. When RTDs are used to test wide area monitoring algorithms, for example, controller testing in the feedback loop, is there a time delay? We can't hear Dr. Dinesh.
Can you hear now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, when we are sending wide area signals from real-time digital simulator, of course, it introduces certain delays, like real devices, of course, has delays like instrument. Sorry about that. I'll repeat my answer again. If you want to, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear.
Yeah, when we are providing wide area measurement using real-time simulator, of course, it introduces certain delays like processing delays, but those delays are basically compensated when we are providing those measurements with timestamp. So that's the whole idea of providing wide area syncophases. because in real system, you are getting measurement from different substations. They are geographically apart from each other. So when we are getting signal, basically those synchrophase signal also provide time tag information. When we want to decode those signal at the control center, basically they use phasor data concentrators. Phasor data concentrators basically introduce certain type of delays because they wait like 100 or 200 milliseconds to receive all the signal from all the substation, and then it will check all the time tag. Depend on the time tag of the signal, it will align all the signal together so that we can get the snapshot of the system, and then we can compare phase angle and other quantities at a given point of time. So if you want to test closed loop application, of course, it introduces certain delays, but one option is time tags. It provides certain type of compensation. Other thing is most of the wide area protection applications, they are backup protection, because we can't use wide area protection for primary protection. Even in real system, you can't use it because of those time delays associated with wide area measurements.
So any other questions, you can directly ask by switching on your mics.
Yeah, if you have any other question, I share my email address. You may send your question to me if you have any other questions later. Of course, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Dinesh, I'm very happy. Just want to thank you for answering my question. It's a very clear, very complete presentation. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much. This is Lidula here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lidula. Thank you so much.
Okay, if there is no more questions, I would like to go through the vote of thanks. So should be okay, no? No any questions? Dr. Dinesh, can you please unshare your screen?
Oh yeah, so yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so I am really delighted to have this opportunity to thank one of my batchmates and also a product of the Department of Electrical Engineering, Dr. Dinesh Guru Singh, for your valuable speech today on ECON 2021 on digital real-time simulations for power and energy systems. I believe that it's really a timely and worthy topic for the audience in this conference. I am really happy with your skills in clearly explaining about all the aspects related to digital real-time simulations in the power system area. So your knowledge and experience of this area would surely have broadened the knowledge and motivated the audience on new technologies and applications of the field. So I once again would like to thank you for such a worthy speech, and sorry, hope to get chance to hear more on the field from you in future also. I also would be grateful to the audience for your valuable presence and active engagement by asking questions. And finally, I would be grateful to the ESOC members for your numerous support by preparing and sharing the flyer and all the technical support during the keynote session. So thank you, everyone. And I hope and I invite you all to enjoy the rest of the day with us. So technical sessions has already started. So please join the technical sessions and stay with us for the whole day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tushara, for great appreciation. And again, thank you very much for providing this opportunity to discuss about my expertise with my university. I'm always happy to share my knowledge with the University of Moratuwa because it's my beginning point of my career. Thank you very much for everyone to attend in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. We can take another photograph for the conclusion of the first keynote. You can turn on your cameras as well, so we can take a group photo again. Okay, I'll take the photograph. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have 4 technical sessions lined up for you. From 9:30 till 11:45 am, we have 2 technical sessions on power systems and on energy systems and smart technology. From 11:45 am till 1:30 pm, we have 2 technical sessions on electronic systems, power electronics and applications, and on robotics and intelligent systems.
You can join these sessions via the links available on the program schedule. Just visit www.eesoc.lk/eecon2021, go to the program schedule and click on the Zoom icon next to each session or use the given meeting ID and password. We will be having the second keynote after the break at 2 p.m. So please join the main meeting with the link given in the website at 2 p.m. as well. Thank you.